Okay, we're going to review today for the Unit 1 government test. This will be for the retest. You will have a couple of questions that you will answer that are going to be open-ended questions. So as you go through this ed puzzle, you're going to listen to the content and then you're going to answer some questions that are going to prepare you for your retest. The main standards that we went over, I'm going to go over those today. So our first standard that we're going to go over is going to be 1A. 1A states, I can explain major ideas in history, including the law of nature and nature's God, unalienable rights, divine rights of kings, social contract theory, and the rights of resistance to illegitimate government. We are going to go over unalienable rights, the social contract theory, rights of resistance to illegitimate government, and you should be able to explain how these ideas are reflected in the U.S. government today. So the first one is unalienable rights. Unalienable rights are the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This belongs to every person. And according to the U.S. Constitution and the American beliefs, nobody can take those rights away from you, not even the government. Now, if you take the life of somebody away, then obviously there are the court systems and stuff, and there's laws that you have to abide by. So you as an individual person, your unalienable rights are you have a right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Nobody can take that away from you, not even the government, and nobody is above the government. Next, you have social contract. Social contract is the idea that people surrender to the state the power needed to maintain order, and in turn, the state protects its citizens. So this is a contract that states that us as citizens are going to give our power, our voice to elected officials, and in return, those elected officials are going to protect us and maintain order. Now, if they don't protect us and they don't maintain order, then there are ways in which we can overthrow or unre-elect people that are in office. So the belief is the social contract is that I'm willing to give the government power as long as they maintain order and they protect us. So that's the idea of the social contract. Next is the rights of resistance to illegitimate government. So with the social contract and with the unalienable rights, basically what the rights of resistance to illegitimate governments is authority is derived from the consent of the governed, that is us. We're the ones that are governing through elected officials, and the sole purpose of the government is to protect the people's liberties. And if they don't protect the people's liberties, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and they don't maintain order and protect us, then we as citizens have the ability to abolish or change that government. And so that's what rights of resistance to illegitimate governments means. So for this test question, basically you should be able to explain these three types of ideas or these major ideas in history and how they interact or how they are part of the U.S. Constitution and the American government today. Okay, the next standard that we're going to look at is 11A. 11A says, I can compare the U.S. constitutional republic to the historical and contemporary forms of government, such as monarchy, a classical republic, authoritarian, socialist, direct democracy, theocracy, tribal, and other republics. So here you're being asked to compare the U.S. constitutional republic to these other government types. For this test question, we are going to compare the U.S. constitutional republic to a constitutional monarchy, that's one type of monarchy, authoritarian government, socialist government, and a theocracy. So here you have to know what a U.S. constitutional republic is. And basically this clearly has limits on powers of those elected. We have a constitution that they can follow and abide by, and it is ruled by the people for the people through elected representatives. And nobody is above the law. So in a constitutional republic, that is what we live in today. We elect our officials. They represent what we want them to represent. Nobody is above the law, which means that there has to be basically in the House, you have a bicameral legislature. So you have a House of Representatives, and you have a Senate, and you have a president, and you have judges. And all of those people have checks on them to make sure that they are abiding by the Constitution and making sure that they're protecting the American people. Next, you have a constitutional monarchy. And constitutional monarchy is similar to a U.S. constitutional republic because you do have a ruler, a king or queen, which is kind of like the president. They're a figurehead. They do have some power, but it's very limited because they also have a parliament that shares the power with them. And they do have to follow a written constitution. So Great Britain is considered a constitutional monarchy. So even though they have a king or queen, they do have a parliament, a legislative body that they have to use and abide by by a written constitution, and they have to follow that to make sure that they're doing what's best for their citizens as well. So the constitutional monarchy is very similar to the U.S. constitutional republic. Next, which is a complete opposite of the U.S. constitutional republic, is an authoritarian government. An authoritarian government is basically a dictatorship where there's one sole person in charge. It is either hereditary, to where it is handed down from one family member to another generation, or it is taken usually by force. So this is a dictatorship where government controls all aspects of society. They control the economics, they control the political, they control the social aspects of life. So an example of an authoritarian government is North Korea. And currently, North Korea, you have Kim Jong Un, that is the ruler, and before that, you had family members that were the ruler of this country. An historical authoritarian government might be Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union or Adolf Hitler, that was the dictator of Germany, they were both basically took over by force, even though you look at it and Hitler was actually elected into office and then won the election, and then he became a dictator. So authoritarian, the government basically controls all aspects of society. So very different from the US constitutional republic and from a constitutional monarchy. In a socialist government, the next one, government controls major industries like education and medical to try to create more equitable societies. So this is where the government kind of controls the social services of the society to try to create equality amongst the social classes. So an example of a socialist economy is Sweden. The government doesn't control all aspects of society. They control some aspects of society, and they're typically tied to social services. So the next one, theocracy. We only have one theocratic government left in the world today, and it is Iran. And Iran is basically a government that's based on religion that derives its power from God. So it's said that the ruler in a theocracy gets its power, or what it's supposed to do, from powers above them. So this is basically religion and government blending together, and that's how it's ran. So that is a theocracy. And like I said, the only one that we have still is Iran. So Iran is the only theocratic government. Okay, so the last standard that I'm going to go over is going to be 4B. 4B says I can compare the role of government in the U.S. free enterprise system and other economic systems. So basically here you have to be able to compare the U.S. free enterprise system and the role that the government takes in the free enterprise system. And we're going to look at communism and socialism. So you have to understand that the free enterprise system means this is dealing with economics. So this is what is being produced, goods and services that are being produced. So here there's very little government intervention in businesses and what's being produced and what's being sold in the United States. So basically, if you can think of something to start a business and make money or profit off of a business in the United States, you're able to do that. So if I wanted to sit here and start like a cell phone company, or if I wanted to sit here and start a food truck, and I started that and I wanted to make profits, the government basically, there's some regulation, but the government's basically going to let me make the profits and make as much money as I possibly can with that. Now, in a free enterprise system, everything is controlled by supply and demand. So in the United States, the supply and demand, if they supply it and there's a demand for it, people will go out and buy it. So in a free enterprise system, it's very little government control, and people are trying to make a profit off of what they produce and sell. So free enterprise system, that's what we have here in the U.S. Very little government intervention, and that's more regulation just for consumer safety. In a communist government, basically government controls all means of production and distribution. and this leads to a classless society. So basically, China is an example of a communist country. In China, the government decides what is going to be produced and how it's going to be sold in the country. And then the businesses and the factories are basically controlled by the government, and they have to do what the government tells them to do. So it's not really allowing for people to come up with ideas to make money. If it doesn't benefit the government, then they probably won't allow for people to make it. Now, in China, they do have 13 special economic zones that are considered free enterprise, but a majority of the country is considered communist. North Korea is considered communist. Cuba is considered communist, so the government's controlling the means of production and distribution, what can be produced and what can be sold. In a socialist economy, like I had stated in the slide before this, in a socialist economy, the government plays a significant role in regulations, but does not completely control the means of production and distribution. They control the basic means of production and distribution and provide social services. So in a socialist economy, if you're in the medical field or if you're in education, the government controls that because they want to make sure that everybody has the ability to receive medical services and education at the equality, with equity. So they control the social services aspects of production and distribution. They do allow for some free enterprise like where people can produce things and sell them for a profit. It's just the social services in a socialist economy are controlled by the government. So when you go to answer this test question, you have to be able to compare the free enterprise system, how everything is based off supply and demand and off of making profit, to communist and socialist. Communist being that the government controls all means of production distribution and there's no real way to make a profit off of anything. And then socialism, where it's kind of a mix, that the social services are controlled by the government, but there is still some ability for free enterprise and making a profit off of other types of cells and stuff. So you're going to go into Eduphoria, you will, or not Eduphoria, you'll go into Aware and you'll take an open-ended test. Once you finish this Ed puzzle, email your teacher to let them know that you have finished. Once they verify that you have finished and gotten the correct answers on the Ed puzzle, then they will set up a time to open up the retest so that you can take that. Good luck.